What's going on, football fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS and prop preview for Monday Night Football between the Lions and the 49ers. Gonna get you ready for all of your exposure tonight. But first off, a look at the Draftkings slate, an injury report, ownership trends, some game scripts to go out there and consider for this evening. And then afterwards, a look at the prop side of things and what I'm taking there on Underdog and Prize Picks. You might want to consider adding to a few slips of your own. So by the end, you have all the info that you need to go out there, get to all of your action, and hopefully make Monday Night Football a good one. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop right on in. But first off, look at the DFS side. Almost all the injury news has already been settled out there before lock, at least on the offensive side of things. So first and foremost, Dave Montgomery going to be out for the Lions, giving most of the running back usage out there to Jahmyr Gibbs. And then on the flip side, you've got Garendo returning for the 49ers. So he'll be back to his running back one duties. But outside of both of those pieces of news, not all that much that we're worried about for tonight. So maybe a little bit simpler from that aspect, but the game scripting going to be a little bit more difficult out there from the motivation aspect. The reason I say that is the Lions have nothing to play for in this game. All of their seeding comes down to the game against the Vikings next weekend. And on the flip side, you've got a 49ers team that has already been eliminated from playoff contention. So they, of course, are not worried whatsoever about that, which leaves us in a conundrum. Which team is going to be pressing the offense, if any, out there from either team? Are we going to see starters rested out there for the Lions before their big matchup next week? Maybe some backups, some younger players for the 49ers mixing into play more than they usually would towards the end of the year? I think, but first off, you're going to see that from both teams at certain stages. The issue is when we see some of those positional changes and the big impact fantasy-wise as well. So I think if you're going out there, you're playing lineups, just playing a lot of chalk tonight, you're probably not doing it the right way. And the reason I say that is when we have the ability for second, third stringers to be mixing in, you want to be playing for a little bit of chaos. So though guys like Jahmyr Gibbs are projecting through the roof when it comes to their projections, there's a real chance that by the end of the third quarter, it's Craig Reynolds, that it's guys like Vaki leading the backfield for Detroit, and not so much the expected backfield of Jahmyr Gibbs. So we'll talk about when we go player for player some of the impacts of that kind of stuff, but at 67%, there could be game scripts where it's Gibbs along with one of those backup running backs getting there for Detroit. So let's start with Gibbs. He's up here at $11,600, real expensive on this kind of slate, but you could argue that he's worth it at nearly a 25-point projection. He's one of the best plays that we have on the slate, both as a traditional running back and out of the backfield as a wide receiver, and fits a variety of different game scripts, whether Detroit's playing from ahead, whether they're playing in a slightly more competitive game script, or even from behind against this 49ers team. He would fit pretty much every single scenario. So that's why the ownership's a little bit higher than some of the players around him. The projections also higher both in terms of raw projection and efficiency, in terms of his points per dollar value, hence why he's there at about 67% combined ownership. So whether you're playing him at captain or potentially over there at flex, I think both make sense with the kind of game script that you're playing, but just know that he might not be playing for all four quarters. Amon-Ra St. Brown has the same kind of concern. I don't think it's going to be like all the starters that Detroit would go out there and pull, but guys like a Jared Goff, a Gibbs, a St. Brown out there at wide receiver, these star players would be prime candidates to go out there and be pulled. But at about 40% combined ownership, it's not like Amon-Ra would be mega chalk at $10,600. So a little bit expensive, but if you're going to play into large field GPPs, he's not the kind of chalk that is so prohibitive that you have to really account for it at another spot. You know, about 40% combined ownership, even just 30% over there at flex is very reasonable for a $10,600 player. So I don't think he's out of play out there in lineups tonight. It's just that I do worry that he could be leaving the game a little bit early. He could go out there, scores 20 points before he leaves the game, and in that case, you're still going to have him out there in the large field GPP. You've got these two quarterbacks next in the pricing, so $9,800 for Goff, you got $9,400 Brock Purdy. In fact, Brock Purdy, one of the best plays on the slate when it comes to points per dollar value. They're at about 2.2x PPD. Whether it's Goff or Purdy, I think both of them make quite a bit of sense for tonight, but Purdy especially, I do think that there's a chance that Detroit ends up pulling their starters. San Fran could have that happen towards the end. I think it would take either them leading by a lot to go out there and pull starters, or them losing by 2-3 touchdowns for them to go to some of their backups. But Purdy, I think, has a better chance at actually playing all four quarters than what you have over there with Jared Goff. So at $9,400, with the matchup favoring the pass over the run over there for the San Fran side, I really like that for his production. You can look at Kittle, Garendo as well. In general, it's not just the quarterback situation where I trust Purdy a little bit more. In general, I trust these elite skill position players for San Fran a lot more than what we have on Detroit. And the reason for that is that they have less to lose. These guys on Detroit, they don't want to get injured over the last few weeks, but if they do suffer an injury, it's not going to affect some sort of playoff run. They'll be out, they'll have to recover over the next month or so out there before training camp. But on the flip side, you've got this Detroit Lions team where if somebody goes down, especially one of those top three that we mentioned, it is going to be catastrophic for their playoff chances. So even a Jameson Williams, I'd throw into that same conversation. These elite skill position guys over there for the Lions, I think you're going to see a short leash on those sort of players. A Jawan Jennings, a Deebo Samuel, though, for San Fran, I don't have those same sort of concerns. So you're seeing slightly higher ownership on guys like Jennings and Samuel, but I think it's warranted with the kind of game script and motivations that we have in play for tonight. Patrick Taylor Jr., he was priced up in case Garendo was out, but is a little bit, overpriced now that we have him in, of course. Sam Laporta for the Lions, he's 11.8 points projection. He's there at $5,800. I think he's a solid mid-tier play, but I do think that he could be one of those guys that leaves the game early if it's a little bit out of hand. The kickers are okay plays. They're usually never great plays for any given slate. That's kind of the case tonight. When they get closer to 1.9x points per dollar value is where I'm starting to get over the field on kickers. In that 1.6, 1.7x range, that's pretty typical, I'd say, for the position. The defenses, if you're looking to correlate either team, I guess you could use them in a 4-2 or a 5-1 lineup, but really correlation pieces at the very best, not the sort of plays that I'd be looking to use in single entries or cash. Tim Patrick, a Pearsall, though, and really everyone else down here, especially like the skill position guys towards the bottom end of the board, I have a ton of intrigue in the bottom end of the board here. And in fact, I'm going to be scattershotting the value tier range a lot more than what we typically hear here on the channel. If you guys have watched a lot of my videos throughout the season, you'll probably know that down low, there might be like 1, 2, maybe 3 guys that I'm using towards the bottom end of the board. And it'll be like 10, 15%ers at the very best. This kind of slate, because I think there's a real opportunity for Detroit to go to some of these backups. Heck, even guys like Pearsall, I think you're going to get extra run for the 49ers. As they're towards the end of the year, I'm going to give some extra usage, experience to rookies like a Pearsall. Even some of these guys that just don't see as much play time, like a Sione Vaki, could go to Saubert, a Jacob Cowing, more of a returner out there for San Fran, but maybe they give them more traditional wide receiver usage on a week like this. I think this is the kind of week where you want to take shots towards the bottom end of the board, whether it's Craig Reynolds getting usage at running back if Gibbs were to be rested. You go to Vaki for that same reason. You go to Brock Wright, maybe he sees more tight end one usage with Sam Laporta getting rested. On Eric Saubert, maybe if they want to sit George Kittle, right, to protect him a little bit. On the flip side, you see more of him out there rather than George Kittle tonight. There's an opportunity for a lot of these cheap players to get there in single entry contest. Now for the prop side of things, where I've got a few props you might want to keep an eye on or add to a slip of your own. So we're going to start over here on Prize Picks, where we got this under on Deebo Samuel's receptions, which is at 4.5 on the site. And on a lot of books, he's at that same number. In fact, on Draftkings, he's minus 125 for the under. Pinnacle, he's at 4.5, but they don't have the odds posted right now. But on FanDuel, the real data point that maybe get to this, minus 140 for the under. And it does make sense when you think about this matchup. This is towards the end of the year where they have nothing to play for. I'm not expecting older veterans like Deebo Samuel to be getting like 12 to 15 targets tonight. Like, I just don't see it. This isn't the sort of game that's a must win for them. If we were talking about towards the end of the year in playoff contention, high profile game, sure, right? Like maybe I'd be looking at an over on Deebo Samuel at 4.5 receptions, but with his mediocre performance this year, seemingly lost the chemistry between him and Brock Purdy. He seems to be looking at Jawan Jennings a lot more. Heck, even George Kittle getting more targets than what you've seen for Deebo Samuel this year. That's why I'm taking this under on his prop. It's not just the fact that I think the motivation plays into the teams not being as pass heavy this evening, but it also is because of the fact that he's an older aging player that just hasn't had the best season to begin with. So he shoots towards the under on a lot of the books, as I've already mentioned. A little bit of plus EV value if that's your sort of thing, and a prop that makes sense in a vacuum to begin with. So that's going to be on both sites. The issue is trying to find the pairing in terms of this pairing, and that's because the prop that I took that was available on both sites ended up getting nuked to absolute crap in terms of bumps. So it was an under on rushing attempts attempts on Gibbs, who, believe it or not, was the whole way at 18.5 on books. And now even on DraftKings FanDuel, he's down at 16.5 attempts. And the reasoning for that is I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get full run tonight. I know that he is the quote-unquote main running back out there for Detroit, but this game means next to nothing in terms of their playoff chances. And furthermore, they've got a game next week against the Vikings where they've got to go out there and win, right? They win, they get an entire week off in the playoffs to try and get David Montgomery back, get back to their full load on offense, potentially even get some of their defensive injuries back out there by the time they get to the playoffs. This game, though, has no impact on that. So why would they go out there and give Jahmyr Gibbs 25 carries? It just makes no sense to go out there and do so. Now, are they going to give him carries in the first half? Sure. I could see him getting to like 15, 16 carries, but I don't really see him getting to 20 plus. You've got Craig Reynolds, who's a capable running back. They've got Vaki, heck, even Jefferson, as I mentioned during the fantasy section, could be incorporated into a few spots. So you've got Gibbs here at 17.5 rushing attempts. I don't think that's the worst under. It's only 2.82x over here on Underdog, but I think the props that I would go with, just because you're getting a full 3x payout and it wasn't bumped from the number that I took, is his under on fantasy score. So he is favored to score tonight. You're really going to have to make sure that he doesn't score multiple touchdowns, but if he is taken out of the game early, he stays under 150 scrimmage yards, he should easily go under this 21 fantasy score line. So that would be what I would mix in at this point. So over here on Prize Picks does give you a full 3x payout on this kind of combination, a plus EV prop over there on the Deebo Samuel under, and then this Jahmyr Gibbs prop, I personally project him for a little bit higher than this if you look at like my DraftKings projections, but what you're betting on here is him not getting his full workload. And if you take a look at all the sports books out there, they've taken his lines, which are at like 95 yards to start the day, and already started to bump them back. So you can see over here, right? He's like 85 yards over here in Underdog. If we go to Prize Picks, I believe he's also, like 85.5 yards in terms of his projection. The fantasy scores that they posted on both sites have hardly adjusted. I believe he was at 21.5 to start the day. Now he's at 21. You go over here to Underdog, same thing. He was at 19.45 or 19.55 to start the day. Now he's down here at 19.05 points. They've slightly adjusted that, but not enough for the adjustment that you've seen across the sportsbook book. So that's why I ended up taking that combination out there for props. If you want to go with the same kind of props that I did, you could go over here on the Underdog side and take the under on Jahmyr Gibbs rushing attempts. But just know that I did end up getting it at 18.5 over there on my Patreon page, and without a multiplier towards the under. So of course, guys, for all the different prop slips that I'm entering as I'm getting to them before any sort of bumps end up happening, make sure to check out the Patreon page for all of that. But that's all I've got over here for Monday Night Football. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Monday Night Football preview. Before you're hopping out of here, go ahead and smash the like button for me, and also subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already, so you don't miss any of the content to come. That'll of course include the content for the rest of the NFL season and all the golf to come here throughout 2025. Of course, this is a golf channel on top of covering the NFL season, and we've got the Century Tournament of Champions coming back for this week. So if you're one of my viewers that watches both sports, we've got that content coming here to the channel, as well as all the content throughout the rest of the NFL season as well. So it's a good time to be a sports fan. Looking forward to all of that to come. Best of luck out there with all of your exposure tonight, whether it's over there in the GPPs or over there with your prop exposure as well. Hopefully you guys can cash out for all those different kind of slips. Smash that like button like I said before, and for a chance to earn a free month on my Patreon page, go ahead and comment down below who you've got as the top scorer on tonight's slate for a chance to earn a free chance at that. So if you guys can give me the top scorer and their projection within 2 points, that'll be their DraftKings score, of course, over there for this evening, you will win a free access to the Patreon page. So it'll be first come, first serve. Give me your player and their score down below. Best of luck with that, all of your exposure over there for DFS and props, and let's make Monday Night Football a good one.